Tom Hardy arrived on the Mobland backlot long before sunrise, eager for the strange hush that settles over a sleeping studio. A pale winter moon hovered above the aluminum roofs, and the sodium yard lights cast monstrous shadows of scaffolding and cranes across the deserted courtyard. He breathed in diesel, damp plywood, stale coffee, and something faintly chemical from the nearby paint shop, an aroma only a film set could love. Wrapped in a battered leather biker jacket and fingerless gloves, he crossed toward Stage B, the soles of his work boots clicking on frost-speckled concrete. Every step pressed the fatigue of yesterday's stunts deeper into his calf muscles, yet anticipation sparked behind his eyes. Today promised a new scene, a new argument, a new chance to prove that raw dialogue could punch as hard as a choreographed brawl. Inside the grimy service corridor, a vendor cart steamed beside an orange work lamp. The young production assistant guarding it shivered in two hoodies and shoved a paper cup into Hardy's hand. The coffee tasted like burnt rubber, but it warmed his tongue and his resolve. He was lifting the cup for a second sip when he spotted Leah Rosen for the first time. She stood alone near wardrobe, chin tilted, curls escaping a wool cap, pen scrawling furious notes across a fistful of script pages balanced on a clipboard. Even at a distance, Hardy could sense an energy radiating from her, equal parts scholar and street fighter. Rumor claimed she'd been hired as historical consultant after shredding an early treatment for conflating 2 entire decades of London politics. Rumor also claimed she left revisions on the showrunner's desk that read like love letters written in razor wire. He cleared his throat. "You must be the timeline magician," he said, half smiling around the rims of his cup. She didn't startle, only raised her dark, perceptive eyes, weighing him with a glance that felt precise enough to measure heartbeats. "I prefer Dramaturg," she answered, the accent Cambridge-educated but warmed by Tel Aviv summers. "Magicians trade in misdirection. I sift for inconvenient facts." Hardy chuckled, lowering his cup. "Inconvenient facts are my breakfast. Got any to spare?" She snapped shut the clipboard, a quiet but unmistakable rebuke to flattery. "Depends. Can you digest them without sugar?" Before he could reply, a distant shout echoed down the corridor. "Crew call in 15!" Leah pocketed her pen and gestured toward the cavernous stage door. "If you truly crave facts, walk with me. The set's bleeding anachronisms." They entered Stage B together. Beyond the metal threshold, past a wall of blackout curtains, and the Mobland world swallowed them. A 3/4 city block of crooked tenements sat beneath a ceiling lattice of LEDs and rain rigs. Brick facades glistened with last night's water test. Flickering neon spelled out Club Sin in broken letters. It was 2 a.m. in the show's fictional 1970s, yet the distant soundtrack of drill hammers and forklifts betrayed the illusion. Leah pressed a palm to a graffiti-splashed fence post. "Spray paint brands like this didn't reach London until 1982, she murmured. "Set deck promised to sand it tonight." Hardy leaned in, studying the crimson letters. "Edge without serif, you said." She shook her head. "Worse. History without context. Crime sagas borrow real horrors, then airbrush the politics out." Hardy lifted an eyebrow. "Politics scare viewers. Numbers drop." Leah responded with a slow, deliberate smile. "Electorates drop when politics scare viewers. Art can teach bravery." Their eyes locked, and for a humming instant they stood on opposite sides of a fault line neither yet understood. A crew member hustled past with a tray of prop Molotov cocktails. Hardy snapped back to the moment, felt a flicker of adrenaline he usually saved for stunt days. "You free at lunch?" he asked. "I have questions." Leah flipped open the clipboard again, never breaking stride. "If you can stay civil, Mr. Hardy, I can stay." Her voice suggested she doubted both his willingness and the sets. The morning shoot unfolded in staccato bursts. Hardy, as gangster Liam Donnelly, trading threats with a rival under flickering streetlights, ducking blanks, falling onto rain-slick asphalt. Between takes he caught glimpses of Leah by Video Village, conferring with the director, sliding sticky notes into battered binders. Each time their gazes met, words unsaid charged the air like static. By noon the AD called wrap for lunch, and Hardy beelined through the maze of sound blankets and cable runs, tracking Leah to a corner of the catering tent where she sat alone with a bowl of lentil soup and a paperback of Hannah Arendt's essays. He slid onto the folding chair opposite. "Still want that debate?" he asked. She closed the book, marking her place with a napkin. "Define the terms first. Debate without terms is noise." Hardy nodded, appreciating the scholarly feint, but he dove straight in. "Brexit's not the end of globalism, just a tantrum." Leah lifted an eyebrow. "A tantrum that slashed trade and mainstream xenophobia. Tantrums burn houses down." Hardy leaned forward. People felt unseen. When voters scream, elites blame decibels instead of damage. Leah tapped the table. "My grandparents screamed in Warsaw. The world pretended not to hear. Silence birthed fascisms. Yet you defend those who shout by punching down? Protest isn't license for bigotry." Their voices remained low, but intensity pulsed under every syllable. Extras queued for shepherd's pie took voyeuristic bites, sensing something richer than gravy brewing at table 7. Hardy gestured with his fork. "Working class frustration isn't bigotry. Politicians hijack pain for power. Actors like me, we're told to shout lines, not opinions." Leah's eyes sparked. "Actors own megaphones. Silence becomes endorsement. You choose whether propaganda rides your image." Hardy considered, recalling talk show segments he'd sidestepped to avoid Twitter storms. Loud opinions turn to clickbait. Nuance dies. Leah's expression softened, not with pity but with recognition. "Nuance is muscle," she said. "Use it or lose it." The AD's bullhorn cracked. 5 minutes. Hardy rose reluctantly. "I like this argument better than choreographed violence." Leah smiled at last. "Violence is easy. Persuasion is craft." She extended her hand. "Round 2 after rap?" He shook firmly. "Count on it." And then he was gone. Tradecraft replaced by gunplay on gimbal rigs. But every punch thrown felt lighter. Every line delivered sharper because the real conflict buzzed off screen. Hours later, dusk seeped through skylights painting the set in bruised orange and cobalt shadows. Hardy's knuckles were raw beneath stage blood, but he hurried to catch Leah before she left. He found her at props, adjusting a rack of vintage placards reading "Britain needs every voice." "Subtle," he observed. Leah smirked. "Directorial Easter egg." Hardy wiped sweat from his brow. "What about Israel's coalition turmoil?" he asked, diving midstream. Leah didn't blink. "Fractured democracy, dangerous simplicity." She stepped closer. "Your tabloids reduce it to good versus evil. Real life devours binaries." Hardy's voice dropped. "So does TV when producers fear audience math." Leah inhaled. "Fear sells, courage educates." An overhead light flickered. A gaffer cursed on a ladder. Hardy steadied a wobbling C-stand, then gestured Leah toward stage doors. "Walk and argue," he suggested. Outside, night air tasted of rain and distant fried onions. Security floods lit their breath like smoke. They paced between trailers, words volleying. Irish labor strikes, Occupy, BDS, Westminster expense scandals. Leah's grandmother's forged passport surfaced. Hardy countered with stories of his own schoolyard brawls over traveler heritage. Their debate mutated into storytelling, then into empathy. Somewhere around the prop graveyard, Leah quoted Amos Oz on the responsibility of imagination. Hardy responded with Austin Clarke on survival. Silence finally blossomed, not as surrender, but as respect. They reached a battered picnic table behind the sound stages, where drizzle spiderwebbed under orange lamps. Raindrops puckered discarded call sheets. Leah sat, shivering slightly. Hardy shrugged off his leather jacket, draped it over her shoulders. She resisted, then allowed it. "Chivalry points, Mr. Hardy," she said. "But I won't trade warmth for honesty." Hardy sat opposite, elbows on knees. "Honesty's colder than November," he replied. "Yet here we are." Leah looked skyward, rain kissing her lashes. "Here we are," she echoed. A security cart whirred past. Hardy realized how late the hour, how empty the lot. "We should go," he murmured. Leah stood, returning his jacket. "You have interviews tomorrow?" He grimaced. "Press junket at 9. Tabloids hunting for plot leaks." Leah tucked curls beneath her cap. "Then speak about policy instead. Leak courage." She extended her hand again, Hardy shook it, rainwater trickling between their fingers. I might get misquoted into oblivion. Leah's smile gleamed under sodium glow. Truth survives distortion, she said, echoing their earlier lunch. But it needs carriers. Taxi headlights swung across puddles. Leah stepped away, backpack slung over one shoulder. Good night, Tom. Until the next inconvenient fact. Hardy watched her cab slide through the security gate, taillights fading into wet blackness. He exhaled, sensing an ache more mental than physical. Tomorrow, microphones would beckon. Would he dodge the hard questions again, or would he risk nuance? He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Twitter as drizzle soaked the screen. He drafted words about representation, about listening beneath the shouting, about how fictional violence should never eclipse real human stakes. He paused, saved it to drafts. Nuance deserved daylight. The rain eased. Hardy strolled back toward the makeup truck, past silent facades, where earlier he'd brandished prop firearms. The city set now looked fragile, cardboard edges visible, but its hollowness revealed a metaphor. Politics, too, could be deconstructed, rebuilt authentically, provided artisans cared enough. At his trailer door, he glanced back once more at the gate, imagining Leah's train racing east, her pen already dissecting new scripts, new lies. He felt grateful for her challenge, scared by its implications, and fiercely alive. The next morning, Hardy faced an ocean of press. Reporters lobbed the usual bait: stunt injuries, rumored cameos, diet secrets. He answered politely, but when one journalist pivoted to Brexit nostalgia, Hardy felt Leah's voice in his ear. He spoke, not ranting, but threading nuance, acknowledging disenfranchised towns while condemning opportunistic rhetoric. Cameras clicked. Some scribes frowned, but one young reporter's eyes lit with curiosity. Hardy glimpsed a path. Maybe not activist, but awake. Later, in makeup, he opened Twitter and finally hit send. The message read,
"Storytellers borrow real pain. Our job isn't just to entertain, but to amplify unheard voices. Mobland makes crime look stylish. Let's remember crime's roots grow in neglected communities and hateful ideologies. Nuance beats noise."
Within minutes, thousands engaged. Some cheered, others snarled, but the conversation blossomed. Hardy smiled, awkward, vulnerable, but resolute. A muscle flexed. Weeks passed, the show's finale wrapped. On the last day, Leah returned to set for pickup reshoots. Hardy caught her outside catering, where spring sun glinted off scaffolding. He greeted her with a nod and a folded newspaper. "Page 3, he said. She unfolded it, an op-ed he'd written on artistic responsibility. She scanned, brow lifting. "You flexed," he shrugged. "Still sore, but stronger." Leah's grin broke wide. "Keep lifting." They shared coffee beneath a blooming cherry tree some set decorator had insisted on trucking in for one shot no one would remember. Wind scattered petals across their boots, pale pink flakes swirling like ticker tape. Evening wrapped in applause and hugs. Prop guns were locked, cameras powered down. Hardy and Leah lingered by the fake alley one final time. Neon flickered to darkness. "Edge without serif," Hardy said, touching the graffiti she once corrected. Leah traced the faded paint. "Substance won," she whispered. They walked together toward the parking lot where real streets awaited, still unfinished, still disputing their own timeline. As they parted, Leah squeezed his arm. "Remember," she said, "silence by choice is complicity," he finished. She nodded once, stepped into her ride share, and was gone. Hardy stood alone under studio lights dimming toward midnight, feeling a quiet revolution unfurling, not on billboards or streaming charts, but inside the choices he would make, line by line, roll by roll, day by day. For a long minute he simply breathed, letting the cool air pry sweat from his collarbones, while the echo of distant generators pulsed like surf against concrete walls. The lot was nearly empty now, save for a couple of gaffers laughing over takeaway noodles, and a stray fox-red cat threading between lighting cases in search of warmth. Hardy's phone vibrated, a notification storm of headlines quoting his afternoon interview, some praising a measured critique of populism, others roping him into partisan mud before he'd even removed his makeup. He thumbed through the feeds, heart flickering between dread and determination, then switched the screen off, let them spin. A better story was already taking root. He imagined Leah on the late train to King's Cross, pen tapping her notebook as reflections of city lights stuttered across the carriage glass. He pictured her drafting a midnight email to the writer's room, citing fresh statistics and moral stakes, asking hard questions they'd dodge only at their own peril. He recalled the way she'd said, "Use your platform," not as an accusation but as a blueprint. And he realized that he wanted to keep walking alongside voices like hers, people who carried archives in their pockets and weren't afraid to fling open the covers. The fox-red cat brushed his boot, startling him back to the present. Hardy crouched, scratched its ears, and murmured, "What do you reckon, mate? Time to stir the pot?" The cat purred agreement, or so he chose to hear, before trotting away toward the wardrobe truck. In the hush, Hardy opened his notes app and began drafting a manifesto of sorts. Bullet points for a quiet campaign to pair every glamorous press tour with a charity roundtable, every viral soundbite with a contextual thread, every stunt-heavy blockbuster with a vow to fund civic engagement workshops in the communities that loaned their streets to location scouts. It felt ambitious, maybe naive, but as Leah had said, nuance is a muscle. The strain was proof of growth. He saved the document, slipped the phone into his pocket, and started toward the gate where his motorcycle waited beneath a dim security lamp. Rain-slick asphalt reflected light like liquid mercury. Mounting the bike, he glanced back at the skeletal skyline of set walls and rigging towers, empty shells until storytellers filled them with purpose. The helmet visor snapped shut, sealing him in a sphere of quiet where only the thrum of the engine existed. As he pulled out onto the service road, Hardy whispered a promise only the wind could hear. Next season, on or off camera, he would pour substance into every empty serif he found, even if it meant rewriting the script in real time. Because revolutions might start with louder guns, but they survived on sharper words, and his were finally loaded.